So, Wilkie, how has your Easter Sunday been? What have you been up to?
Hambo, my Easter Sunday has been wonderful. This weekend, this whole because of various bank holidays and stuff, we've ended up having a 4-day weekend here at the house.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah,
Whoop, whoop.
yeah.
Yeah. It's lots of fun, and we're doing Easter egg hunts, but we're doing them in like a triangle. So, Sophie made an Easter egg hunt for me. I've made an Easter egg hunt for Malix, which he did earlier today, and then Malix is going to do an Easter egg hunt for Sophie tomorrow.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's been a lot of fun. So I did mine yesterday. I've got the clues here on my desk. I won't go through all of them, but like they were really like sort of personal. They were stuff to do with like my D&D characters, the shows that I like to watch. And it was lots of fun. It was and I got some hobnobs and some Milky Ways at the end of it, which was very fun.
Wilkie, my Easter egg hunt that I set for myself was I put my Easter egg downstairs in the kitchen, and then I woke up, and then it was a puzzle for me to get dressed, get downstairs, and then eat it as quickly as I can. So, pretty much the same thing.
Pretty much the same. Did you have like gloves and a hat and a scarf on while you did it? You had to eat it with a knife and fork?
Oh, that was such a good game as a kid. No, I didn't do that, but we should talk about this more on the show. Welcome back, everybody, to a little show we like to do here at the weekends, or as you call it, Thursday. It's, of course, a Boy Review, hosted by me, Hamish.
And me, Wilkie. There was a slight pause there. I thought I was going to do an impression, but I didn't.
No, that's okay. You don't have to do an impression all the time.
Yeah.
You never have to do an impression again if you don't want to.
I'll see. If a funny impression occurs to me, then I'll prepare it.
If the person that you are going to become, sort of their spirit feels you. They just enter you.
Yeah.
And they overcome you.
Like in improv.
And you'll take on the impression.
The spirit, if the spirit moves you.
If the spirit of someone that's probably still alive compels you.
Yeah. If someone comes into my room and compels me with a shotgun, do an impression of me or else.
So I did want to talk about the chocolate game, but you mentioning someone coming with a shotgun did remind me of a story I heard from someone I work with recently.
Okay. That's slightly unsettling.
Well, so I have a job with Tech Radar in the UK, but we also have offices all over the world.
Okay.
And the next biggest office is one based in America, and we overlap with them sometimes. So we do have these meetings in the afternoon where people from the US and the UK are both present. And we've also had quite a few new people join the team recently. So we've had a few meetings that have literally just been all have a drink and have a chat. And, telling fun stories about things that go on. And this guy from America said, he went to university in and around Texas, which is obviously like a state where you're allowed guns. And also you're allowed to shoot people if they come onto your proproperty.
I guess, yeah.
If you break onto someone's property.
If someone breaks into your house, yeah, I guess you could, yeah.
And when he was at university, obviously didn't always follow the rules. And there was one place where they just went on to land that used to be owned by a cult, but the cult had disbanded pretty much almost entirely.
Wonderful.
But when you're at university, it's like, let's go to the cult place.
This is going to go well. This is not the beginning of like Midsummer 2 cultish boogaloo.
And so they went onto the land, they were wandering around, and then this elderly woman with a shotgun that had some items that identified her as someone that would have been in the cult, pointed at them and went in more less polite words, "Please go away."
Well, it sounds like nobody actually got shot, so I'm glad about that.
No one was shot. She was very polite in the sense that she did ask questions first and shoot later.
But she did shoot?
No, I don't think she did shoot. I was just sort of saying, it's like the phrase, the line, "Shoot first, ask questions later."
Yeah, no, I was worried that someone did actually get shot.
Everyone was A-okay, but it was just it's one of those things where obviously there are many parts of America which do come to the UK, particularly sort of TV and film and all the rest. And obviously it's another country which speaks English, so it's quite easy for the cultures to share many aspects. But also then that was a story where it's like, this is a different place.
Yeah.
It is such a different world out there.
This is such an alien concept. Like someone having a gun is such a it's such a more powerful image to us than it is like to an American.
Because have you ever seen a gun, Wookie?
I've seen armed police officers at like Gatwick Airport and around London. I have fired guns in the past, like sports guns. So like I went clay pigeon shooting one time, which is functionally the same as like just like practicing archery or something. Like it's just to do with like aiming, right? You're not trying to kill anything. Is what I'm getting at. I used to go to shooting club occasionally at my school. We had a shooting range under the school. I know that it used to be an officer training school, so we sort of had to have one, which doesn't really help me not sound like a sort of real middle class toff. But yeah, I remember the guy who organized like the shooting range and the sort of CCF program. His name was Mr. Savage, which was sort of how,
that's a good name.
It was sort of how he approached criticism as well. He comes over to me after one of the sort of shooting sessions. We just shoot at the targets for like half an hour. That was like once a week for half an hour, just shoot at a target. And he comes over to me and he sort of holds out his hand for the gun, and I hand it over to him safely. He looks at it, examines it. It's like, thought I'd given you a shotgun for a second there, but no.
That's so mean. That's so
referencing
good.
Referencing the spread of my bullets on the target. He thought he'd handed me a shotgun, but no, it was a high precision rifle. I was just bad.
We also had a CCF combined cadet force at my school, and we also had a firing range, but we had to use these very old rifles because it was this basically like metal half cylinder. So imagine a half pipe but flipped the other way up. And so we couldn't use something that was particularly powerful.
Or it would go through the wall and kill someone.
It could go through the wall, and yeah, there was like a path that people would walk through on the other side. So it was just sort of like, it could go horribly wrong. So we had these piddly old rifles that were like
bore-loading Civil War era muskets.
It wasn't quite that bad, but probably only like a couple of decades later than that. Anyway, again, they weren't particularly accurate either, but it was fun to occasionally get to shoot them. But we also have other weapons as well, but we didn't really get to use those very often. They were more just for practicing drill, because part of cadets is you have to know how to take it apart and service it. So we got taught that, but we didn't have any ammo for those ones.
Just make a click noise, like the click noise when a character in a film runs out of bullets.
Yes, but yeah, I've not really ever something like a shotgun or one of these other proper guns with ammo in. Never really done anything like that. And so hearing this story of this guy having a shotgun pointed at his face was very weird to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then on the complete opposite end of the scale, we have people at parties putting on hats, scarf, and gloves, grabbing a fork and a knife and trying to cut into chocolates. A quintessentially British party game. Wilkie, what do you think of this party game?
On report alone, It's difficult, right? Because I haven't had that much experience. It feels super nostalgic and super good, right? It's super wholesome, but also like you're just eating chocolate. Like it's a you've got to eat a full Cadbury Dairy Milk bar, right? That's it.
Well, so I think the prize, it's one of those games where you don't necessarily have a winner or a loser. It's just if you're in and you're playing the game, then your prize is you are getting to eat the chocolate bars that you managed to get through.
So it's free pie. The sort of person who goes to a pie eating contest and just says free pie.
Yeah, because your plan is you just have to. It's the difficulty is getting all that gear on and then being able to eat the chocolate, and then you go through it all, and your prize is eating the chocolate as you go on.
Is there a time limit, or can you just sort of sit there and enjoy the chocolate slowly?
The way I've played it when I've done it at, say, parties, or it was quite common at Cub camps when I was at Cubs, is there was someone is in the middle and they've got to put on gloves, often mittens as well, to give you even less dexterity, scarf and a hat, and then you have to grab a knife and a fork and you try and cut open a bar of chocolate.
Yes.
Around the outside in a ring, a bunch of other kids are playing some kind of game, and if one of them wins, they're able to come in. Much like how before you play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, there's a game where the winner of that then gets to come into the chair. And chocolate and £1,000,000, pretty much the same thing to an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, to an 8-year-old, they don't know what a million means. They're just the chocolate is there. The number is nothing. Chocolate is easy choice.
So there is a time limit in the sense that if someone is able to succeed at whatever the outside game is, they will then take your place, and you have to disrobe, at least with regards to the weird items you've had to put on.
Yeah, you can keep if you had something on originally, you can keep it on, but then
take off the mittens, and then you go back out to the outside, and you're waiting for your turn to be able to enter the game.
Yeah.
So Wookie, you said you haven't played it very much.
No, I really don't think I've had that much experience on it, but I being on like British Twitter and British Facebook, I've definitely seen people being nostalgic about it because, like you said, it's such a quintessentially British thing that I feel this sort of weird disconnected nostalgia for it.
Do you have any party games that you do have nostalgia for? Is there Pass the Parcel, Musical Chairs, any of those other classics that you're thinking, yes, I love that game? I
have played Pass the Parcel a bit. And Pass the Parcel is very fun.
I mean, you've got to have played Pass the Parcel at some point.
Well, that's the thing. What this is sort of leading into is that I never really had like one of those like traditional. I say traditional, one of those like stereotypical birthday parties with like loads of friends over and like loads of cake and like I just that's just not what happened. I don't really know what to tell you. I'm not like sad about it. I would spend most birthdays with my mate Oscar, and we'd go to the woods and run around and have sword fights with sticks, and that was sort of good enough for me.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good one.
I've definitely played Pass the Parcel at other people's birthday parties, but not at my own.
That's fair. I mean, you've talked about how often because like when you were at school, like your primary school, there were way fewer people in your class than
I went to a very small primary school, especially my year. It was me and 3 other people.
Yeah, so I guess the advantage of some of those kid games like Pass the Parcel, this eating the chocolate, is its ways when you've got a party of like 25 to 35 kids, because you've got to invite your kid's entire class.
Yeah.
When you've got that, these are ways to make a game that can keep everyone entertained. Hopefully everyone can get a prize or get something, and then you haven't had to spend about £100 trying to entertain these kids. You can get away with a chocolate bar, which is like £2 from Tesco. You can get away with a few just those little goodie bags of Haribo in each level of the Pass the Parcel. So you've got it covered.
Easy stuff.
A tenner and a frugal parent, and you've got everyone something.
Love that.
I'm trying to think if I must have had it's one of those weird things where a lot of birthday parties that haven't really like stuck in my head specifically. So I can't think of one where I definitely remember that. I do remember one of my friends had a Thunderbirds party, and it was basically just a normal kid's birthday party. You still played all of the traditional games, but their dad had made everyone a little Thunderbirds hat and a sash.
Oh, that's so cool. I'd have loved that.
So everyone had a blue hat, and I think everyone had yellow, and then the kid whose birthday it was, Josh, I think he had blue. He had some other sash to be like, you're the birthday boy.
Yeah.
You're special today. But it was still very fun. We all got to take those home. And I remember that being fun. And then the last birthday party where we did these kind of games was one of my friend's 18th birthdays.
Okay. That's a bit older than sort of what we've been talking about before.
She invited loads of people. I mean, because so I think I've mentioned before, I went to an all-boys school, but there were girls in sixth form, and she was one of those girls that came in and joined us. So when we went to her birthday party, there were a bunch of us that were her friends from college, and then there were all of her school friends that she was still very close with. So it was it was another quite large gathering. And yeah, we just played all of these different games, and they had forfeits and challenges, but all of it was very kid-friendly. Even though we were all very old, or 18 at this point, we could have got absolutely smashed and hammered.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember I was very boring because I'm one of those people that doesn't mind Marmite. And so they had me have to eat things blindfolded and guess what they were. And then obviously the Marmite is the last one. And they were expecting me to have this really bad reaction. Just like,
Yeah.
this is Marmite. And they were all disappointed because I was, I just didn't react.
That's fair. I think I like Marmite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what are we giving? What are we giving? Childhood birthday games. I mean, I again, nostalgia. Really, I think we kind of have to give them a good.
Yeah. Childhood birthday games, especially the cutting off the chocolate. I want that to get a special shout out on our boy reviews list.
Does that game have a name?
I'm gonna Google it. Knife and fork chocolate game. So the answer to your question is no, it doesn't have a name, Wilkie. It's just what it is.
It's called Knife and Fork Chocolate Game.
It's called the Chocolate Game on Online Scout Manager.
It's the Ugly John of party games. It's his name's. Didn't we work out that Ugly John? If you don't know who Ugly John is, he's one of the X-Men characters. We did an episode about him. Didn't we work out that Ugly John's real name wasn't even John?
Yeah,
it was Steve, but his friends called him Ugly John. He's got to have. I guess he's got to have a pseudonym or something.
Ugly John is his pseudonym,
but his real name is Steve.
Yes,
but if he went around being called Ugly Steve, then people would work out what his secret identity was.
Yes, they'd know that he's Steve and he's ugly, which that narrows it down to how many ugly Steves are there in the world?
Well,
fewer than the number of Steves.
How many ugly Steves are there in the world who have 3 faces conjoined onto one head?
Probably fewer, at least one.
But then this one comes along and says, "Oh no, my name's John." It's like, no, sorry, you look a bit like my friend Steve, but no, you can't be him.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you were to, in the Marvel universe, if you were to look at Steve Rogers, who's Captain America, like look at him and just wiggle your head really fast, it might look like he's got 3 heads.
It might.
With the blur that you've introduced.
Who knows?
Or get him to wiggle his head really fast.
Ugly John could be Captain America. We never know. Hambo, I feel like we're skirting around the real issue here.
No, we're not, Wilkie. We're not, Wilkie. We're not skirting around anything.
You sure?
Please.
You sure
You
sure there's not something we wanted to talk about today?
No, there's nothing I wanted to talk about today. There's there's nothing that I want to talk about.
Okay, so I guess that's the episode then.
Thanks for listening. This is it. We're closing out the show.
Come on, Hambo. No, you've got to justify this. So when did I send you that message, Hambo? Because that was the night when I watched this film.
I think you sent it to me Friday evening.
Yeah. So it was Saturday but at like midnight. So Friday.
Oh yeah, it was very late into the evening because I've just not been going to bed at a normal human being's time.
Oh, me neither. So do you want to introduce it or shall I?
So Wilkie sent me a message to watch a Disney Plus original film, and there's a fair decent number that I have now seen on Disney Plus.
We've talked about a lot of them. We've talked about Secret Society of Second-Born Royals. We've talked about Zombies, Zombies 2, How to Build a Better Boy.
Descendants. Have I brought up Descendants? I must have done.
Yeah, I think you have brought up Descendants, and I have now watched all 3 Descendants films, so we should do an episode about that. I need to watch
the third one.
Okay.
We should do. Potentially what we should do is we should do a boy review watch along where we Twitch stream ourselves watching it and tell people when to start and pause, and they can then watch Descendants with us.
That would be good. Yeah.
We should do something like that. I've seen quite a few of these. I even did an article for work about the 7 best Disney Plus original movies that you can watch right now. And the one you've sent me was called Upside Down Magic. And I've got to say, I was pretty intrigued. The idea of it, I go, okay, Upside Down Magic, that's a good title. That gets me intrigued. I want to find out what is upside down about this magic. Do they have to stand on their heads to do spells?
Yes.
Who knows? And then I actually watched the film. My God, I hated it. I detest this film.
Okay. How are we going to structure this criticism? Are you just should we go one by one? Should we go chronologically through the film?
Wilkie. So why don't you go through the plot of the film and I will cut in about when the film does something bad and you can then counter with when the film does something good.
Okay. So at the beginning of the film, this is going to be the reason I asked Hambo to do this is so we can talk about like the full plot of the show. If you want to watch it without knowing any of our opinions, other than the fact that Hambo hates it and I love it,
it does not matter.
Full spoilers. Spoiler warning for the entirety of Upside Down Magic. We start off, we meet our 2 main characters, Eleanor, known as Nori, and Raina, or Rena, based on who's saying it. 2 best friends who discover that they both have magic powers. Nori can transform into animals. It's shown that she can transform into a combination of different animals. We see her turn into a kitten with the sort of bat-like wings of a dragon, these sort of scaly wings. And Rena can control fire. She has this signature move called Sparkle Fireball, which is when we heard the word fireball, watching it as like D&D players, we were like, "What the? That's a huge explosion!" No,
she's just doing it in a kid's room as well. Because first bad point of a film is that she is in her friend's bedroom, surrounded by what I assume is a lot of flammable things, and they think it's a great idea to be like, you know what you can do. Fire magic. And they set it up that this kid is nervous about doing magic. And I go, well, she probably has a good reason to be nervous because if something goes wrong, that house is coming down.
Yeah. Okay, so the children are overexcited about their literal magic powers. That's
yes,
one
there
criticism.
should be parental supervision in those instances.
Maybe that's fair. But yes, we are introduced to the concept of Sparkle Fireball, which looks a bit more like a firework.
She's Jubilee from the X-Men.
Yeah, she's a bit like Jubilee. And these two characters are sent to a place called Sage Academy, which is a rip-off of Hogwarts, basically.
And Camp Half-Blood.
And also Camp Half-Blood, and also kind of Charles Xavier's school for gifted youngsters.
Yes. We're
introduced to the different classes, the different schools of magic, which I think is maybe where Hambo is going to jump in with his first really harsh criticism.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid. First, okay, if you're listening at home, I want you to picture in your head 5 schools of magic and maybe what those different schools would be. I'm going to just count. I'm just going to give you 5 seconds. Okay, so if you can tell, there's probably 2 that you've guessed already. Yes, there are people that control fire. There are fire people. I think they call them what? Sizzlers?
Flares.
Flares. Okay, that's not a bad name. Flares, cool. Then they have the people that can turn into animals. There's a fuzzies.
No,
the fuzzies are a different one. What are the people that can turn into?
People who can transform into animals are fluxers. People who can talk to animals are fuzzies.
Yeah, fluxers should be able to transform into anything, not just animals. Fuzzies are people that can transform just into animals. That would make sense. Bad. Then having 2 distinct groups where people that can transform into animals and talk to animals. Why? Film, you could come up with a more interesting non-animal based magical power, but no, you had to go for 2. You went to that well twice and now it's dried up.
No more water.
Bad.
There's no more water in that well.
No more water. There's nothing good coming out of it. So
there are two more. Flares, fuzzies, fluxers.
Flyers?
Flyers. Flyers who can fly and...
Again, they can just fly. They can't do anything with their... Because we're cutting ahead to the final battle.
No.
It's just like, what are you going to do when you can just fly at the thing? What? How does that help? What are you going to do? Okay, and then what are the other ones? Oh, people that can pull things towards them. They just know the spell Accio from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're called flickers, which is the worst, and I will explain why. So flickers in the film, with a flick of the wrist, they bring an item towards them, okay? That is stupid, I'll give you that, right? Okay, so Upside Down Magic is based on a book, a series of books called Upside Down Magic. Flickers originally could turn things invisible. So
they're like flicking off a light.
Yeah, but so they kept the name but changed it for the film for some reason. I'll give you that. It's a weird thing to change.
Then we learn that in the opening exam, when you get to school, you enter one of 2 groups. You're either an honors student or you're not an honors student.
Yeah, you're a basic student.
And to become an honors student, you have to pass a simple test. And when you're first introduced, the test seems really bloomin' easy.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you're a flicker, you have to bring an object that's 6 foot away towards you. If you're a flare, you have to set a candle on fire that's 6 foot in front of you. It's all these basic things. And you think, like, why are these kids being called honors student if they're just doing that? And you learn that that's because it's meant to be simple, because 99% of students are honors students. It's just students that aren't honors students are deemed to have upside down magic.
Well, that means their magic doesn't work right. That's not necessarily true. There are some people who there are people who Because again, these are children. They're like 10, 11 years old. Like honors is you are naturally talented enough to have a great deal of control over your powers. Basic is you have powers, but you haven't been taught.
We
how
never
to
meet
use
a
them.
basic. We never meet a basic magician though.
We do.
I swear we don't. I remember looking at it. I don't think there is anyone that's basic.
The main characters are either honors or upside down. There are definitely basic students, right? Because we definitely see people get put into the basic category when they get their grades. They get their grades in these letters, right? That they open up the letter and the message reveals itself that you are a flair honors student.
Where does that magic come from? Where does making ink go from invisible to non-invisible all at the same time come from?
No idea.
Who has that power?
Couldn't tell you.
Who can do that? There are other schools of magic out there. Lift the wool from your eyes, sheeple.
Well, okay, here's the thing. This is kind of the point. So I think we should run through the rest of the plot kind of swiftly and then talk about the things we want to talk about. As Hambo said, people who don't have the right sort of powers are put in the category of upside down magic. There's a boy who's a flare, but he produces smoke instead of fire. There's a girl who's a flicker, but she pushes things away from her instead of pulling them towards her.
In the book, I imagine that would have been, she would have been able to turn herself invisible and not objects.
No. In the book, flickers can turn themselves invisible. The upside down flicker in the book can see things that are invisible rather than turning things invisible.
That's quite useful.
It is. Also, there's an upside down fluxer in the book that can turn into inanimate objects, but not animals.
Again, this seems cool and useful.
Okay, again, this is kind of the point. So we get this group of UDMs. We've got a flyer who cannot control his flight. He has to wear a backpack full of stones to keep him stuck to the floor.
That's quite fun.
And what's the last one?
You already mentioned the kid that can make smoke.
Yeah, I
He
think
should
that's
have
it.
been able to make ice. He should have been able to make ice.
In the book, that was his thing. He made ice in the book. And then we meet. So they get.
Why? That was such a better idea.
It's gonna be okay, Hamish. It's gonna be okay. So we meet the teacher of the UDM group, a guy called Bud Scriff, who is simply the coolest dude I've ever met.
I do like Bud Scriff.
Bud Scriff is good. The UDMs are warned that people like them, UDMs, are targets for shadow monsters or shadow magic. So yeah, over the course of the film, the UDMs realize that they are being, shunned by the school for no reason. It's revealed that Bud Scriff is also a UDM. He's a
in the least surprising twist ever, because there's 4 UDMs for 5 schools of magic, and it's just like, well, this guy's the UDM for the 5th one.
Yeah, so he's a UDM fuzzy. He can talk to animals, but only through song, which is very cool.
Very Disney.
And they realize over the course of the film that they are each more powerful than other, their differences make them stronger. So, for example, Nori, obviously, the ability to turn into multiple different animals at once is powerful. So, like, once she learns to control it, she becomes much more powerful than a regular Fluxer. We also have this other plot with Rena, who is a honors flare student. She meets a girl called Chandra, who introduces her to shadow magic. And of course, the actual students haven't been told about shadow magic because the institution doesn't believe that they're at risk.
Stupid.
They think that it only affects the UDMs. Rena is targeted. Rena becomes the host of this shadow monster because school is super difficult. There's a lot of pressure that gets put on her, so she dabbles in shadow magic to increase her powers. She becomes too powerful. She gets possessed by the shadow monster, and then the UDM save the day at the end when the shadow monster tries to attack the school. That's the plot, right? Hambo, are you able to sum up your complaints quickly, or should we go piece by piece?
So I think I've brought up quite a few of my complaints already.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
There's this big final fight. There's so much wrong with it. It's cool that the other students, the UDMs, have to show up and help everyone out. It's like, okay, that's what we're expecting to happen from this.
Yeah.
But it just seemed kind of pointless. It's just sort of like the guy that can fly and all the flyers, they can't really do anything. He's just able to get out of the way of it hitting him. But it's like, why didn't it hit any of the other students that can't fly? Who knows? That they could have given him a cooler power that would have been more helpful to the problem they actually had to solve. Problem 1. Problem 2, the fluxes and the teaching pointless. They teach them how to turn into cats, chickens, and goats. Why aren't you teaching them to turn into cool stuff that could be helpful?
Like dragons. This is also true.
When the monster comes along, they all just turn into like farm animals, and they can't do it. And their teacher goes, "Yeah, well done, everybody." And we go, "No, you should be saying turn into something useful. You're meant to be teaching them." The flares, they just make popcorn all day.
Yeah.
In an hour and a half film, there is 20 minutes of popcorn popping and a teacher eating a bit and then complaining how it's not quite as good as some other kids' popcorn.
This is
Even
true.
though it's plain popcorn. Plain popcorn all tastes the same. Flares can't give it salt and salt and sugar. They can't do that. So just stop it. Unless they can do that, and then that's adding way more magic to their potential.
It really is.
They're not flares, they are popcorners.
They are flavorers. It's got to start with F. So look, I completely see what you're saying, Hambo. I see what you're saying. From my point of view, right? These are not things that are like bad. Like Upside Down Magic is not a bad film. It is cheesy, right? And it is for children. I will give you that.
It's bad. These other films are for children. They are still more enjoyable.
Okay. Can I pose to you the reason why we really enjoyed watching Upside Down Magic? We definitely laughed at things, right? We laughed at the concept of popping popcorn as the exam for like firebenders. You're right, it's a bit ridiculous, but I did some looking up on Google. I read some sort of reviews of it, and we talked amongst ourselves. And Upside Down Magic is a really good, actually, sort of abstraction depiction of life at school for people who are people who are neuroatypical, people who are perhaps autistic specifically.
Okay.
So the first thing, obviously we've also talked about this, right? The way they do their examinations, the way they have these sort of the really weird things they choose to test people on, like popping popcorn, that sort of thing. In a very literal sense, the school has this very narrow view of what it means to be a good spellcaster, like a good flare, right? A good flare is able to light candles and pop popcorn and do all this sort of stuff. But I've forgotten the kid's name, the guy who does smoke. That's a very useful power, right?
No, I'm with you there. I can definitely see sort of the parallels then to when you've talked about how it's looking at people that are neurodivergent or maybe have a learning difficulty.
Yeah.
It's like most kids are the square peg and they're trying to get through the square hole, whereas other kids are maybe the circle peg and you're trying to still put them through the square hole. Whereas, you know, if you modified the exam, you would still see that they're still fine. They will get through the circle hole, which is still a fantastic hole. It's just a bit different.
Yeah.
You just need to tweak how you assess these kids because it's not fair. I think there's a fairly famous cartoon, and it's like if you test every animal by their ability to climb a tree, then monkeys and tigers would rule the world.
Yeah. And then fish who are, you know, super fast underwater, whatever, they don't get any.
Yeah, and so it's just sort of like I can definitely see that, you know, someone with dyslexia, part of the way they sort of balance that is then, you know, in exams I get a bit of extra time, and that helps turn this exam that is, you know, trying to make me light a candle when I can't make fire. It turns it into an exam where it's like, okay, well, you can't do this exact thing, so we're going to make the exam slightly different. So we're assessing you on a level playing field that's relevant to how you work.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, because we have Rena who has all this pressure put on her, even though she's a very talented, you know, right way up magic user, right? But yeah, she has all this pressure put on her to be perfect, to be, you know, the best. When she's put in second best position, that, you know, the mindset is that is absolutely not acceptable, rather than that's incredible, you know, you're the second best in your entire class. She is the one who is shown to struggle with like anxiety and to sort of have those issues, whereas the people that the school looks at as struggling, as not good enough, they're the ones who are actually getting on with each other. So yeah, the system that is pushing the UDMs away when they could be super successful is also, even for people who are, neurotypical, if we're carrying on the metaphor, can still face those difficulties.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
the last thing, I actually spoke to a friend of mine who has Asperger's. So there's I'm reading off a list here of things that she told me were good about the film. The fact that the UDMs the UDMs do struggle, right, because they aren't given the support they need until Scriff says, actually, you know what? Screw this. I've been being a coward this whole time. I've been following what the school says. We're going to go do things my way. And he starts tailoring education to the UDM's needs.
And a thing I did like was like, okay, rather than trying to fit you through the square peg hole, let's fit you through the hole that you were actually designed to fit through. So it's just like, for the flicker that can only push things away, it's going, okay, well, you can't pull things towards you. So, but what do you want to be able to do with your magic that can push things away?
That was a really sweet scene. That's a goal that you can achieve, because there are going to be things that you just fundamentally can't do because they're too difficult and because the system isn't.
You're not
made
built
for
that
you.
way.
Yeah, but then if you can not focus on those things, but focus on how you can, do the most with what you have, you can actually end up surpassing those original goals.
Yeah, and I think that's in those moments, it is fine film. I will give it that. It's not good. I am with you there. Like it does have these messages that are really helpful for people. So in that regards, I'd be willing to give it, to be slightly nicer to it. It's just also,
are you going to be lenient?
Terrible. I will be more lenient, but it's still just it.
What is terrible about it? What is terrible about it that can't be put down to it being just sort of cheesy?
I think I just got angry at these small things, and just a lot of small things built up over time, Wilkie. I had a lot of pent up energy and rage. I've been wanting to get angry, okay? I want to get angry sometimes, Wilkie, and this film became a good way for me to just put out my rage into the world.
Yeah. Honestly, you're right. Yeah.
It's one of those things, again, it's just like when you do sort of like rejig the film and you look at it through a different lens, it can work it can work differently. And there I can go, okay, I can sort of see what they're trying to do. I still don't think it's a good film, but they were trying to achieve something good. And so it's like, okay, I like that. Much like my opinion of Iron Man 2. A lot of people say Iron Man 2 is the worst of the Iron Man films. I personally disagree. And that's because in the context of what it was trying to be, which is Demon in a Bottle, which is this very, like, Tony started dealing with alcoholism, but then tuned down for a PG audience, we go, okay, if you view it like that and you try and parallel it to that rather than a typical superhero film, you're watching the film that you are presented, not the film you want.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, I guess, like, maybe I should give Upside Down Magic another go. Maybe it's because I watched Upside Down Magic on my own as well, rather than with somebody. And so if there are these stupid things, I can't just sort of sit there and be like, isn't this dumb? I'm just mad because I'm sat on my own watching a bad film when I could be doing something else with my life.
I definitely think with a lot of these Disney original films, watching them with friends and laughing at these sort of ridiculous concepts. Because I'm not saying that Upside Down Magic is a cinematographic masterpiece. It's not well written. The acting, honestly, is quite good. The script is pretty cringy.
I do like the crunchy teacher. The crunchy teacher's just fun, and he sings to animals. I still can't get over that. That was quite a good, even if expected, reveal. Because again, I think another part of it was none of it was that odd. Oh, because also final thing, and I think we should review it, is book of Shadow Magic. There's just a book of Shadow Magic in the library.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like that's just asking for trouble.
You absolutely are, yeah. Part of me, because Chandra, the Shadow Magic girl who introduces it to Rena, was like the embodiment of this Shadow Magic spirit thing. Part of me thinks that she created the book, like it wasn't always in the library. She created it and to give it to Rena, but that's me speculating.
But then it's there at the end of the film as well.
It is there at the end of the film, you're right. Well, because Shadow Magic is still around. Because Shadow Magic is a result of the system, not a result of itself. again, yeah, you can wax philosophical about it, but the film, the base film as it is, it's like homebrewing new things for an RPG. Like, we can come up with all these cool explanations for things. The rules as written film is pretty cringy, but I think the book had good intentions, and the film has like translated some of those, but not all of them.
It sounds like a book I've read once called what's it? It's the guy from Cinema Sins did a book, The Ables. And The Ables is about a superhero team where everyone in the superhero group has a disability.
Okay.
So I think the two characters I can kind of remember, I think that the kid in a wheelchair had super strength.
Okay, that's fun.
And there was the main character was blind and had very powerful telekinesis.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. Because I was imagining they were going to have something to do with like they have super hearing or something, but no, that's cool to make it not about their blindness. Yeah.
No, but it's just sort of like, but then they come up against these issues, but it's then again in a similar way to the UDM, finding a way to get around it. So like this kid can't see where he's moving objects to, so it's trying to find ways that he can work with his team where it doesn't matter that he can't see, he's still able to pull off amazing feats with his telekinesis, much like how the guy can't come down, so the girl that can fire things up, she gives him his books, then he's able to come back down to and so I definitely think there's a good place for these. I just in that there's also a part of me though where it goes, you tell me like, okay, it's really cool that it's trying to tell that message. There's a part of me then I wish it was a better film, because then there's always the argument, it's like, oh, we need to make a more normal film because we make those better than we make these other films. Like, no, you could make films that give these good, powerful messages, just also make them a good film.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other.
I definitely think it's a result of me watching it with friends and you watching it alone. We had this great conversation following it where we were like noticing things and like, discussing a couple of us related to the characters really nicely, and like that it was actually quite like well done and sort of had a bit of nuance here and there. In a vacuum, you're right. You are right. The film is sort of a bit weird and a bit bad.
And it makes me angry that like the kid did have ice powers and like these, and just like needlessly changing things from this book that sounds great. So I might give the book a go. But anyway, Wookie, what do you feel like this film deserves to be rated? This was something you wanted to bring to the table this week. So what do you feel is I think
I was ready to do a Wilkie and give it a good, but I think you have convinced me that I think you summed it up quite well. Like it's brilliant that it's like dealing with these issues. It just could have been a better film at the same time, like on a more fundamental level. Would you think a bad good is fair? It had good intentions and executed them fairly poorly.
It's your review, so I'm happy for you to give it really whatever you want. If you want to give it a good, I'm good for that. But this is Wilkie saying Upside Down Magic is bad good.
Yeah, I'm gonna say bad good. Because there were bits of it that just sort of were like, no, that's ridiculous, that's silly. Well then, Hambo, this has been a powerful week on the show. There was a bit of argument back and forth. We were both being very strong about it, but I like to think we've come to a bit of a sort of a meeting place. Yeah, a compromise,
an agreement,
and that is a good place, I think, to end the show. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to listen to more episodes, we referenced a couple of past episodes in this show. You can find us on YouTube or on any sort of podcatcher that you like. If you want to bring our attention to something, then you can tweet with the hashtag #BoyReview, and I will get a little notification on that and we'll bring it up on the show. We have a Twitch channel, like we mentioned, where we will potentially be doing this Descendants watch along. Very exciting. We are at twitch.tv/boyreview. You can give us a follow on there.
Yes, every Wednesday at around 7:30 till 9:30. Sometimes it changes a little bit depending on stuff, but it's normally on a Wednesday in that time in the evening. I stream Fortnite with our friend Alex, who's Lola Lily 101, and I'm going to try and start putting our stuff on YouTube as well.
Brilliant. Well, that is it for us this week. Thank you very much for listening, and it's a good goodbye from me.
It's a good goodbye from me.
Goodbye. This is an upside down podcast, if you ask me.